Okay, so we're getting pretty close to completion on the automatic water change system, and in today's video I want to talk about where we're at with it, how I did it, and some associated costs, as well as how it's all going to work. Let's start out by doing a basic run through. So you guys know I've tapped into my water heater here. Of course there's a mess I need to clean up. Then it's going to run, the water, cold water is going to run through this RV water filter, which is just filled with carbon. This is going to filter out any impurities, and if you're on municipal water, I'm on a well, so I don't have to deal with chlorine, but if you were on and have to deal with chlorine, definitely use one of these. Then it's fed through a 5/8 inner diameter RV water drinking hose, which then of course goes underneath the sink behind the 375 gallon aquarium and feeds into the tankless water heater system here. The hose is attached to a simple barb adapter, which goes into the cold water supply, and then of course the water is going to be heated and pumped back up through more of this hose into this T. This T then feeds all of these valves. I've connected this valve system to the wall with some simple metal strapping just to keep it secure. All of this is kind of temporary. I'll make it more pretty. Of course, I gotta clean up these wires and whatnot, which I'm gonna show you how I did in a moment. And then of course, each one of these valves is fed to where the water needs to go. We've got 4 going to the main portion of the gallery, and then these 2 here. I'm not sure what I'm doing with these. I think one's gonna feed the 375, and the other will do the 2,000 gallon tank. Water is then pumped up through the ceiling and through this hole, this very crude hole in the wall. All of this is just held there with strapping as well. Temporary solution just for me to get this done, make sure it's all working. I'll make it prettier in the days to come. Then of course, the water comes through the other side. It might be difficult to see, you see here, but water is above all the tanks. Each aquarium system, each racking system is fed 1 hose each, all the way down to the last tank that's lit up, so 4 of these racks are done. Now the hose doesn't enter the actual aquariums just yet, but that's as far as I've gotten. Now I want to talk about how I did all this. Okay, so first and foremost, I was having trouble finding some affordable, pretty tough hose that is water safe, and then I come across some RV or camping water hose. It's basically drinking water hose and costs about 40 cents a foot. I've seen other prices varying it upwards of 60 cents, 70 cents a foot, but I got it for about 40 cents a foot on Amazon. I needed 100 feet of it, at least, so it was only 40 bucks for all that hose. I'm also going to go over all the costs. I also got the water filter simply because it was being recommended. I thought, heck yeah, why not? It's pretty cheap as well. 20 bucks, supposed to last me 3 months. I think based on the amount of water I'm going to change, I'll be changing it once a month. I bought 3 of them. To hook all of this up looks kind of confusing, but believe me, it was actually relatively simple. Let me explain. First and foremost, all of these valves have to get power somehow. Each of them have 2 wires, and they're actually indiscriminate. Both wires will do the same thing, but you got to make sure that they all match up. So I need to supply power first and foremost to all 6 of these. So I actually daisy chained them and connected them through 1 wire, which is called the common wire, and of course connected it right in here, right into this common wire section. Very simple, use 20 gauge wire. Now you'll see it's also numbered 1 through 6. This is like how it's going to communicate with each valve. Each valve needs to be individually wired so we can individually control them. Now that we have power, we of course need to control them. So this was pretty easy, just extended the wires to come in and under here. Again, all of this needs to be cleaned up. Of course, a couple of adapters up top here just to make sure that these barb adapters can fit in, and some hose clamps. Very simple. This was kind of tedious, but very straightforward and simple. I didn't like, and I still don't like how it looks going along the ceiling here, but of course, once I clean it up, I'll make it look a little bit better. Cut the holes through the wall there, and then onto the other side like I've already shown you. Now I've been getting asked a tremendous amount, how much is this going to cost? I believe I'm going to be able to automatically change all of the water in the entire gallery, and the entire system is going to cost about 700 bucks. So it's not that bad. I was actually expecting way more, but I'm pretty pleased with the pricing. I am missing a few things. For example, I need a pressure regulator. I can only have about 80 psi going through this pipe. through this hose and hitting those valves, so I need to put a regulator here. So I can't, I'm not going to have one till about late in the week, maybe early next week, so I can't even run this until that happens. But as if I turn this valve on, water's going to start to shoot through. It's going to be filtered through this filter here, of course, and feed through all the hose behind the tank and enter the hot water heater, which isn't on right now. But if I run the water slow enough through this, this will be able to maintain the temperature as it's filling each individual aquarium. Actually, let me just show you how this worked. I did do a test run last night just to see if the valves were working. Just take a look. Okay, so it works, sort of. The water pressure coming out from my tap is simply too high. It exceeds 80 psi. If I do that, I could blow the valves. When I turned the water on, I started playing with things. I had water shoot up to the ceiling, got the floor wet. I did purge the system. I turned down the valve so it's just kind of sort of pushing the water out, but I need it to be done properly. I'm going to have to get a proper pressure regulator valve. With that said, let me show you how this works. Okay, so that hose we got here is running out right here. There's clearly no water coming out of it right now, but let's go turn it on. I can individually turn these on, and I can do it by minutes. That's so far all I know about it. Clearly, I need to learn how all of this works a little bit better. But I'm sure with time, we'll figure it out. Let me see here. Yeah, so I want to put on station 6. And we'll turn it on for just a few minutes. You hear that? So that valve just opened. Water should start flowing out. And it is. And it's starting to warm up. Although I just turned the hot water tank on moments ago, so let's go shut it off now. Okay, so that should have shut it off. Again, I don't know much about it. I just turned it on. It's just starting to get it to work, but I know if I hit the rain delay, that shuts off all water because it's raining out. Which I guess can be used as sort of a safety feature if you kind of think about it. Something goes wrong, I just run in, hit that rain delay. Okay, so we know it works. We've got everything up and running. Clearly we need to clean up the wires, get that pressure regulator valve, and continue to connect all of the hosing, run it up along the ceiling, through the wall, to each aquarium, drill each sump, put in the drain line, and run that through the wall. It's a lot of work. It's going to be worth it. So of course I still need to connect this to my Wi-Fi, download the app so I can control all of this through my phone. But essentially I'm going to be able to turn this on whenever I want, feed water for a set amount of time. I could do it through my phone, or I could just program everything. But I'm nowhere near being able to program it because the water right now has nowhere to go. You see, I'm going to have to drain the tanks manually through some valves at the bottom. You guys have seen these in the past. I just got to open this valve, and it will drain 50% of the water in each aquarium because each one is drilled with a bulkhead halfway down. This was intentionally done when I first did these aquariums so I can eventually install a water change system. I need to run a 2-inch pipe through every tank and out the wall. We've already talked about that before. And for the time being, I'm going to be draining water manually into the pipe. Then, of course, once both tanks are halfway drained, I can go ahead and turn the water returns on. Basically, that's going to be a push of a button here. I'll push a button. The valve that I want to open will open, and water at the same temperature of the aquariums will start to fill the top aquarium. As this one gets to the top, it'll overflow through the overflow up here, down to this aquarium, filling this one up, and then to the bottom. Of course, I'll be able to shut the water supply off at that time. Which means I still need to install all that piping, but eventually what I'd like to have done, and I still need to do, is drill each individual sump at about the right around here, and that will allow me to fill the tanks a little bit more, meaning I can put the water supply on a timer, and if I add too much, it's going to be able to overflow out of the sump and down into the drain, no problem. I'd also like to put those automatic valves on these drains as well, so they can open and close on timers. The downside is it all has to be done by time. It's not being metered. None of this is metered water, which means I want to change 10 gallons, so 10 gallons is going to shoot through. This is based on time, meaning this will turn on for 10 minutes, and water will go to it for 10 minutes or whatever the case might be. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is set up a controller that shuts the pump off, which I already have the ability to do. When the pump shuts off, I'm going to have the valves open and probably leave them open for 30 minutes and then close. That should be enough time. I'm going to have to run several tests to make sure they're opening and closing on time. And then, of course, once we do get that tuned in, we'll give it an extra 5 minutes to continue to drain or whatever the case might be. And then these valves, the water return, will turn on. Once these turns on, let's say we set it for maybe an hour. Maybe because we're running the water through it so slowly that this needs to be turned on for an hour for, say, valve 4. So I would just set the controller somehow. I haven't really messed around with anything yet to turn on for an hour and then turn back off. What I want to do is make sure that too much water is being added to the aquarium, meaning that I'm not adding the exact amount. If I add the exact amount, maybe the water pressure isn't as high as it was the day before. I want to make sure that I have like at least 20% more water going into this. All that extra water will overflow through the bulkheads we're going to drill. This will complete the entire cycle, making this fully automated, and I can control it from here. Whenever I need to do a water change, I can do a 50% water change, or I could do it at will from my phone anywhere in the world. Now, I also don't have to do a full water change. I could just do a flow-through system where I turn the water on and it kind of just dilutes it, but doesn't actually change the water, like a drip system like we explained before. I don't know, seems complicated right now, but I'm sure once it's up and running, it's gonna seem pretty easy. I'm about 4 to 6 hours of like hands-on work into this, and most of that's just trying to feed it through the wall and above the tanks, etc., wiring it. It's very easy stuff, just monotonous and very tedious. How about costs? So I needed 100 feet of this hose, and it came to $46 total. That filter we saw, this is about 20 bucks, $25. I'm also going to include the cost of the bulkheads, which aren't installed just yet, but for the 4 bulkheads, and some miscellaneous things like some clamps, the hose clamps, the wires, extra wire, PVC cement, the 2-inch pipe that I needed like 20 feet of, and of course, elbows and unions. It's about 150 bucks. It's still not that bad. The controller itself, this is only $100. The valves, this is actually a system of 2. You buy one set and you can connect them. They're $100 each. So 100, 200, 300. The heater was $170, so we're at $470 for the main components. Then everything else is kind of not that expensive. So I think we're at about 670 bucks, something like that. Not bad. I still, of course, need to work out how I'm going to set this up for the 375. Clean up the mess out here. I gotta build the new 2,000-gallon filter. I need to finish the background, or at least the external background, or really just start it. This is all cured now. I've been getting asked if I've started it yet or not. Simple answer is no. I actually did a little bit of work with it with just a knife to start carving it, and it's just too messy, so I'm waiting on a hot knife I got on Amazon for 20 bucks. I tried to find one locally, no luck. But the hot knife allowed me to melt through it as opposed to creating all of this foam dust, which is absolutely messy. Anyways, plenty to do. I hope you guys are looking forward to these upcoming projects. Sorry that these can't be completed all in one day. They do take a tremendous amount of time. Usually about a week I can get each individual thing done. But I'm bringing you guys along for every step of the way. So if you enjoy these videos and you're excited to see these projects completed, make sure that you subscribe to this channel if you're not already.